Hello and welcome to this Monday Postcast. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maddie Plell, joined in the studio by Dave Orton. We have Paul Binfield from Paddy Power on the line as well. Today we're going to look back on the action at Wincanton, Aintree, and also in Ireland there was plenty of standout performances. But before we do, a reminder that this week is Responsible Gambling Week, the initiative that the Racing Post and Paddy Power both ardently support. Really important week this for raising awareness and we're going to put a reminder in to just bet responsibly, as always. So let's get on to the show then. Wincanton will be our first port of call, and the Elite Hurdle is one of them, won by Nicky Henderson's Fusil Raffles. Dave, he was sort of billed as an emerging star in the run-up to this. He was very short indeed, and he justified those odds, but I'm not sure it was impressive as quite a few people were hoping it might be.
No, certainly the price, 7-4 on, was suggesting that this would be a couple of lengths, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
We've given him a mark, Maddie, of 153, which is actually £4 lower than a Verdana Blue last year, a mare capable of shaking up the top lot, as we saw. Certainly, she beat Bouvardere, didn't she? So look, this race can go to one that's capable of making an impression. I'd be a little bit more positive than a lot of those people that took the odds and were sort of moaning about him. And
Okay.
you remember he shattered the clock, didn't he, at Kempton in the Adonis?
I think Nicky Henderson said he would very much come on for the run as well, didn't he?
Whether the ground was ideal first time out for one of Henderson's, you're not sure either. They had that, proper deluge, wasn't it, at Wincanton? I remember looking at the first novice hurdle and thinking, this is going to take a lot of getting.
Yeah.
And a lot of the winners came wide that day as well. So if you're looking back at your videos, there's a couple that I want to mention later on. Anything that stuck to the inside and ran well, you have to mark that up, I think.
Okay,
Royal Vacation in the big one. But I'd be positive about it. I think that the runner-up has won a Kingwell, so let's give him a chance.
Yeah, maybe the form's got a more solid look than we're giving it credit for. Binners, what price do you for the champion hurdle now if people are interested in that?
Well, Maddie, as you two have mentioned already, not as impressive as some judges thought he would be, and we actually pushed him for the champion hurdle. He's now at a 14-1 chance from 12, but I think we probably do need to give him another chance. Grand Sancy, as Dave said, Kingwell winner, course and distance winner, and let's see how he gets on next time before making too many quick judgments.
Yeah, would that interest you, that price for the champion? Very, very amusing.
Well, I think
that.
Espoir Dalen was the first 5-year-old for a long time to win.
Yeah,
we could see some 5-year-olds taking out some big races, as we'll get to later on at Cheltenham next year. So again, we know he's a racy sort. How's he going to get on around Cheltenham? But I liked his attitude. That was something that you might have questioned. How would he get on in a battle? He'd done it all quite smoothly so far. So I just think, look, he's a proper horse, and they think that he'll be a champion chaser down the line. So he's obviously got the proper engine. And when they're saying that at Henderson's, they know what they've got, don't they? So.
Yeah, I'm not discounting him entirely, but I wouldn't be rushing to back him for the champion hurdle after that. Maybe I'm being a bit harsh. Time will tell. Let's move on then to the Badger Beers Silver Trophy, won by Give Me a Copper. Likely race sought for Paul Nicholls and Sir Alex Ferguson among the owners. So pretty big story for a Saturday, and maybe the right sort of horse you'd want to be winning a race like this, Dave. Is progressive.
I fancied him a bit on Saturday when the ground came that way. I didn't have a massive bet, but and the way that the two came clear, him and Soupy Soups, Neil Mulholland's horse, he had fitness on his side, but I love the way that he quickened into it. There is obviously a fair handicap in him. They weren't stopping. Watch the video again.
No, not at all.
They weren't stopping at all. And Royal Vacation, I go back to a horse that made his effort on the inside. Colin Tizard's 9-year-old. He's handicapped to win again. I reckon he's going to do so in the coming weeks, so he'll give that form a boost. They're talking about the Beecher now. For Give Me a Copper. The problem is, as you've read probably a lot today in print and heard a lot about after the race, he's very fragile, isn't he?
Needs to be fresh.
He's extremely well fancied for Cheltenham, if you remember that opening handicap, the festival handicap on the state, that opening Tuesday, and just didn't turn up, did he? So is he best fresh? Maybe they've learnt about him now, but when he jumps one, was it 3 out? What a sight that was when they switched to that side on camera. Oh. Lovely horse.
Harry Cobden. I mean, there's been a lot said about the jockeys Paul Nicholls has and how he treats them, but he seems to be really settling into that role, and he's got a remarkable attitude for someone who's pretty young.
Good talker. Yes, absolutely. He nicked.
Nothing seems to faze him, does it?
That job early, didn't he? And I sort of say that because it's not an easy job to come across and stay in, is it? As we well know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got no complaints about Harry whatsoever.
Yeah, he gave him a crack at, didn't he? Binners, Grand National, is he on your radar for Aintree?
He might be, Maddie. We didn't rush out with any prices after the race. I wondered if he might be entered in the big Ladbrokes race at Newbury in a couple of weeks' time, but possibly unusually for a Paul Nicholls combatant in the Silver Trophy. He doesn't hold an entry for Newbury, but I'm pretty sure that there'll be some more big staying chases in the future for him, and it was great to see Sir Alex Ferguson celebrating on the balcony. A good friend of mine, Dave Lowe, took the video of that, and he's had 366,000 views, so he's done all right.
Just shows you what these big personalities can do for the sport, doesn't it? Great to see those red colours in the winner's enclosure again. Now, there was also the Rising Star Novices Chase, which saw Reserve Tank redeem his reputation. You're smiling because you know I was happy to see it.
Crack on, lead the way, Maddie, lead the way.
No, I mean, I must admit I was very disappointed with him at Chepstow. He's a bit of a funny horse in some ways.
Were you that disappointed with him?
I was, yeah.
Oh, okay. Chairwoman of the fan club, not happy.
I think he can carry himself a little bit weird, and it was interesting Robbie Power's comments saying he just needs good ground, and even on Saturday that was, as you say, went round the outside, better ground.
He was the first one to really explore that route, and if you remember in the opening race he got chinned, didn't he, on Fiddlers on the Roof or whatever it's called. Yes, and he had gone on the inside all the way around Puppy Power, and he was off the bridle a long way. Shrewd move. Yeah, well, so I was riding it with him actually, that one.
Yeah.
And it didn't quite come off. I thought that this was a very good performance. We know that this chap has been waiting to jump a fence, and he's a top novice hurdler last year, as he showed at Aintree. That's proved himself now. He's got a proper engine, this horse. He beat If You Say Run quite easily, didn't he, I think? Again, the mare stuck slightly more to the inside, but while she may be just a proper 140 horse, I think that probably is her. She's an early season type for me, and she'd come into it on a win. Comanche Reb was back in third. We've given him a mark of 152. That's up there with Bags Groove, who won it last year, went on to win a Grade 2 at Kempton. Maybe they'll look for something that like him. This is a horse that should be heading towards Cheltenham. Whether he's quite another Lost in Translation, not so sure.
No.
He's in very nice.
They seem very adamant that 2.5 is his trip and no further at this stage. I'd say that's about right, yeah.
A mark of 152, it can't be too far off getting near.
No.
I thought it was a bit harder than I was expecting, actually.
Yeah, so it will be interesting to see how they campaign him if they are adamant that he wants this good ground. Maybe Kempton can often stay quite dry at Christmas, can't it? So who knows if the Quarto Star will be an option at Binners. I mean, JLT is the race that's sort of been bandied around for Reserve Tank. Any prices on him for that?
Yeah, Maddie, he's really at the front of the market now. We went 8-1 from 14-1 for the JLT. Only one horse heads him above that, and that's the almighty Samcro, who was so good on his chasing debut. But good to see Reserve Tank bounce back after his defeat by the Jarvis Plate, who himself could run at Cheltenham this weekend and could be a good horse himself.
Certainly, I definitely didn't miss that. I saw some prices going around for Jarvis Plate. I thought that's quite surprising. Anyway, we'll move on to the action at Aintree. Some really good performances. As I say, we'll get onto Ireland in a little bit with some of the stars returning, but perhaps some more emerging stars from Aintree. Riders on the Storm used to be trained in Ireland now with Nigel Twiston-Davies, and he made a mockery of his field in that race.
Whopping gamble, wasn't he, for that novice handicap won by Aplutard, who made a mockery of the race in the end. However, that was Tom Taft. Now with Twiston-Davies, who we know this is his time of year, Twisters. He gets annoyed when people say that, but it's so often the way that his
I'll
horses
argue with
are
the
just
facts.
Absolutely quite right. And finally, this horse did what punters have been expecting him to do last year. We'll see what the handicapper does. That was off 140, so you're talking about having to go up to the upper echelons. I think we'll probably see him at the Caspian, something like that.
Yeah, he hasn't got any
Caspian
entries
Caviar
on our website just yet.
You'd think that would be the way they're looking for that. Cepage in second, cracking run. We know that he goes very well fresh. Fancy Bowler top tips is on Saturday because of that Frodon form, of course.
Yeah.
And Old Grangewood, who is just a proper good stick, I think, for the form, is way back in third.
Yeah, good form. I think going forward, I'd have a slight note of caution about him because he has, as you say, promised a lot, and sometimes he's failed to deliver. He is a Scorpion, so he's got that sort of
he's a Scorpion
mind about him. I
Here
hate
we go.
bringing out these cliches, but he has proved to be a little bit hit and miss before, so maybe bear that in mind with Riders on the Storm. The last day was another winner for the Ruckers and Evan Williams. He's got an entry in the Hurst Park at Ascot coming up. How impressed were you with him? I thought it was pretty serene green.
Yes, and these Evan Williams horses, again, Twisters now at this time of year, Evans horses you tend to think might just need that run. They come there cruising, don't they, for example? And you think, right, next time's the day. The last day, it was his day. But definitely had his ground. And these 2 mile handicappers over fences, it reminds me of the 5 furlong sprints on the flat. They never seem to, sort of follow up. It's who's next. I think the handicapper really gets them. So it's not a division that I'm really sort of loving at the moment.
That's interesting. Let's move on then to Top Notch Binners. He's got an entry in the fixed brush. Well, what was the fixed brush at Haydock. Produced a really tenacious performance, a cracking finish with Roxana in there as well. And just a really admirable horse, Top Notch.
Yeah, he's been brilliant over the years, hasn't he, Maddie? He won at Kempton last season over fences. He seems to be a nice dual-purpose horse now for Nicky Henderson. And, it was good to see him back in the winner's enclosure. Only a small horse as well, so he's got a heart of a lion. And we make him 14-1 for that race that you mentioned. It used to be the fixed brush. It's now the catchily named Betfair Best Odds on ITV Races Stayers Handicap Hurdle.
Can always rely on you to provide me with the details, Binners. Top Notch, one of those who could be difficult to place. He's not quite up to the grade ones, but he's better than a handicapper.
Hard to think of a better horse that you'd like to own.
Yeah.
If you think about that, he came from France, placed in a triumph, a very good triumph, and has just held his form all the way. Everyone just didn't quite get to the top, did he? But he's a proper grade 2 horse. He's a small field weapon as well. That's exactly what he is. I liked him on Saturday. I thought Roxana was the one to beat, but she was skinny enough for me. And
Brigitte Flow in the finish as well.
Who was second in the race last year. Top Notch had been beaten in that race 2 years ago. He usually needs a prep, but small fields, he absolutely loves them. Nick Watts' analysis in the paper summed it up for Roxana. She's been to Aintree 3 times now, and she's been chinned 3 times. It's an unlucky track for her. It was a fine comeback. I think you can be positive about that race.
Yeah, it sure can. We'll move on to Sunday now then, and Sandown was the big meeting in Britain yesterday. Gold Cup clues, or maybe not, were on show in the intermediate chase. Santini scrambled home from Now McGinty in a race that's been won by Coney Gree in the past. I mean, this is difficult to be positive about, isn't it? Personally, I really was not taken with the performance.
Let's get this out of the way. We were speaking off air, weren't we? And I said, come on, you've got to lead with this. I can't really remember seeing him do it before. You take a different view to that?
Not to the, extent on Sunday, not quite that bad, but
chivvying in and off the bridle,
been a little bit idle. I mean, I remember when he won I think it was a grade 2 at Cheltenham in really heavy ground against Blackhop, and he was sort of under the pump, and he's a very dour stayer. But I just think going forward for a horse that you want to be looking at for Gold Cups and things, you don't want them to idle, because then they're really vulnerable in the closing stages. And although they might fight back, if another horse is delivered with a really perfectly timed run, they could just miss out in a finish. Do you see where I'm coming from?
Yes. Yes, of course, absolutely. I gave him the benefit of the doubt. I did an assessor piece after yesterday for today's paper, and said if there's a positive, he might probably be a horse that can come alive on the big days. I certainly was impressed with him at Cheltenham, having had that prep to go, and the race wasn't run to suit in the RSA at all. They dawdled, and I thought that the best ride won the day, top of the game in Harry Cobden. That's not to put Nico down. I thought Nico was at his best yesterday. He had to be. He was giving old rival Now McGinty a penalty, but that chap was 28
I was going to say,
behind,
how much on ratings should he have beaten Now McGinty by?
We gave him 156. He's rated 163. So the handicappers said potentially it might be rusty. Also wrote it was a mark of respect that the bookmakers didn't push him out. Maybe Ben is going to put Paul Scholes on that, but 8-1. If anything on that performance, he should be double figures.
Yeah, I'm not going to go too far into it and draw myself into a corner. I'm not saying he can't win a Gold Cup, but you'd like to see more, wouldn't you? And they've ruled out the King George, so Trials Day you'd think is the next option, but where'd they go in between?
Henderson said straight away after the race, we wanted to get a run into him before Trials Day. The Cotswold Chase was the big target pre-Cheltenham. Gives him a lovely run then, doesn't it?
Don't you need to go somewhere before then?
You probably need to go to Ireland if you're Santini, because Kempton didn't suit in the Corto Star last year. That was one of the most eye-catching runs in defeat, anywhere at Christmas. I would go to Alexis with him if he were mine.
I'd be with you on that one, but I think Henderson, he can be a bit tentative about sending horses over to Ireland.
You just don't know. I mean, Nicky will know a lot more than us about how his constitution would take that sort of travel, but it looks the ideal race. Yeah,
I'd agree. Binners Santini for the Gold Cup, as Dave said. How did you react?
Well, we weren't impressed, but we weren't overly concerned either. We left him as 8-1 unchanged for the Gold Cup. Other firms did push him a little bit, but I think it sums it up when Nicky Henderson completely ruled out the King George about the performance yesterday. Admittedly, he's got other horses for that, but a bit like the horse we were talking about earlier. Let's see how he gets on next time before making too many judgments.
You guys are far more forgiving than me. No, definitely not. We'll see how he gets on. He's still, he won the race at the end of the day, did what he had to do. But
not going to trouble lost in translation, is he, as far as Maddie's concerned?
I hope not. Okay, we'll move on then to Ireland and Apples Jade. There's talk of her retirement now after she was beaten by Bacardi's in the Lismullen hurdle. Dave, she just couldn't dominate as we've seen her do so many times in the past, and although she's a young horse, it sounds, quite concerning that Gordon Elliott's saying they might call it a day.
Yes, 4-1 on, just looking down at what price she was. We've rated her again as being in the mid 150s. Yeah, it just left the impression to me that was a mother and a father of a race she had at Aintree when she got beaten. And then they went on again and she got beaten again at the Irish Festivals, and you just think, as Gordon said afterwards, she's been on the go since she was a 3-year-old.
Yeah.
With Willie Mullins, of course, she's also a lifetime. He wasn't too despondent.
Second in a Triumph, wasn't she?
Exactly. The only worrying thing, and there'll be so many people out there that have followed her so closely because she's an equine cash point she's been for a lot of people, is when she's fresh, she's usually deadly. This was going to be her third Lismullen. Bacardi's, while on his day, he's a top class horse.
Probably not seen the best of him before.
He's been very fragile. He's had a couple of hard falls, and again, we should talk about him really because it was a fair and square success. It looks like he's going to now go down that route of the staying hurdles again. Not going to go over fences. Patrick saying in the paper today we had an argument about it with Willie. I won.
Amusing, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Having argued with Patrick a few times over a beer before, let me tell you, he often wins. But what I would say is that it just looks like she's now got a lot to prove.
Yeah.
And I'd love to see her bounce back to Hatton's Grace. They might meet again. It's tough to come back, I think.
She's been such like a star character, hasn't she? She's got a real presence about her.
Only 7.
Yeah, and people have really latched on to her, so it would be good to see her back. We await news on whether she'll be retired or not. Plenty of other big stories on Sunday. Ballyasheen won the Fortria, beating the 2 Cheltenham Festival winners in Duc de Genevre's and A Plus Tard, and I think his jumping proved that he was the more experienced horse in the race, and that's what won him the race ultimately.
Yes, if you remember last year, he won it on much better ground, and Bolger was worried about the ground, and he was conceding weight, but he had the fitness on his side, and he was a big price going into it. There were loads of money for the second season novices, weren't they? A Plus Tard, where do we go with this one? It does look like he's better going left-handed. That seemed, I think, the defeat at Punchestown, they maybe thought there might be something in that. I think they'll keep him to left-handed tracks. Not a bad thing in the jumps game, is it?
No.
And he loves Cheltenham. Of all the Ryanair contenders I've seen so far, do not give up on him. He was coming back, I thought, at the finish.
Duc de Genevre's. I thought he ran well and then sort of just blew up a bit.
It looked that way. He was quite keen, I think, and some of Willie's horses have been badly needing him. It was such a terrible Arkle for one reason or another.
Yeah.
And Kalashnikov obviously didn't finish in that race. That would have told us a lot more. And he sauntered to success. I didn't believe it. The one thing I would say, if you like a Duke, is that he took a while to get going last season. If you remember, he was beaten in some of those novice chases, and then he came, I think, Thyestes Day and destroyed them. That was when it sort of picked up for him. So maybe he's an after Christmas horse.
Okay, could well be. Binners, we saw a really promising chasing debut from Fakir Dudery, beating Mellon, put in a really professional round of jumping just for a 4-year-old and obviously getting that weight. What did you make of him?
I thought it was absolutely brilliant. Maddie, good to see Joseph with another lovely horse on his hands. And we put him in. He's now at the head of the market for the Racing Post Arkle. He's 8-1 joint favourite along with another Irish contender, Lorena. It's 10, and then it's 10-1 Mellon. But yeah, he did it well yesterday, and I look forward to seeing wherever he goes next, or one of those nice chases in December, I would imagine.
Yeah, exactly. If Altior does step up in trip, well, he's going to Ascot, and if he stays there, I mean, this division's got an open look to it, or at least more open than it was before. Could he sort of step up as one of the good 2-mile hurdlers chasers? Obviously, he's still a novice, but he seems to be pretty exciting.
That way, he's extremely exciting, and I think us and them won it last year for Joe O'Brien. He went on to finish second in an Arkle.
Yeah.
Long time since we had a 5-year-old win an Arkle. I had to look it up yesterday. And, Boy Poorer Steadies in 2006. I won't make you guess. There used to be quite a few of them.
Yeah.
Shumplev was another one. There's been some crackers. You've got to basically be a brilliant.
Was Masterminded one? He won it when he was very young, didn't he?
Ooh, that's a good shout. I can't.
Not sure.
He didn't jump out on the wiki list at me that I looked down. But it's been a while since we had a 4-year-old going over fences. You know, he can mop up as far as I'm concerned. Footpad won the race in 2017, went on to win an Arkle. You think now he'll go to Leopardstown at Christmas? I think that would be the way. They were talking about the Drinmore, but I'd keep him at 2 miles for your mind. I backed him in the Supreme. I was a big fan of his last year when he came to Cheltenham, if you remember, on trials then. Absolutely hosed up.
Yeah.
I was with him that day and I thought, right, I've got one here. And I think, I don't know, it would have been interesting to see what if he'd have gone in the Triumph. You have to think he would have nearly won it. I think the way that Sir Eric unfortunately didn't.
I'm just thinking, Masterminded he was very young when he won the Champion Chase. Wouldn't have been the Arkle. I mean, we've had a few of these sort of last year's juveniles come out, Coursably, Fusil Raffles, and this guy. At the start of this season, I wasn't really sure that they were necessarily the strongest bunch. Penton Hills were yet to see a course. What do you think of them? Maybe they're not quite as, maybe again, as per usual, I'm being harsh.
I think that some of the divisions last year, if you remember the Supreme Novice, we went into it, was it 9-2 the field, something like that?
Yeah.
Certainly going into it, you've usually got a hot pot in that. The 2 mile divisions are not as strong. They are crying out for new stars.
Yeah.
Fakir, for me, it definitely is one. Mellon was obviously giving him weight yesterday.
I thought he ran very well.
I thought he did. And you had to, there were a couple of people that backed him and got him to me straight away saying, wish Townsend had made his move a little bit closer. You know, Paul was on him. But listen, you're getting that weight. This is a horse that just got into a beautiful rhythm. The form will work out strongly. I'm a game changer on his debut over Gordon Elliott. Decent horse over Philip Hobbs. That is going to prove to be a strong race. And I thought the 12-1 afterwards for the Arkle was huge.
Yeah, very strong words there from Dave. And before we move on, let's talk about another emerging star in Andy Dufresne. Really impressive on hurdling debut. And Gordon Elliott, he's just got any number of these sort of really speedy bump horses. Malone Road we're yet to see, but Envoy Allen came out and impressed the other day. And this one, he looks another. He was really professional again, I thought. I
hovered over the even money in the morning, thinking this is. I know how much they think of this horse, and his bumper win, it was at Down Royal. Golden Spread he beat, a horse of Willie Mullins, who went out and won his next 2 and then took in a decent bumper. He absolutely spread-eagled him, and I love the way that he jumped yesterday. It's all going to be about what trip he goes over, because Envoy LN is the number one. Malone Road, there's a few rumours about him. Is all still well? I think they started the season well with him in his pre-training, but haven't been a few rumours there now, so we'll see what happens with him. But Envoy LN, wherever he goes, the others are going to have to go somewhere else, you know. Wasn't just about Andy Dufresne yesterday, was it? But as Binners will say, he looks like a proper Cheltenham horse, doesn't he, I think? Yeah,
he certainly does. Purchased for a lot of money too. Binners, anything to add on those Cheltenham markets?
Yeah, I mean, Andy Dufresne, he's now second favourite behind the horse Dave mentioned, Envoy Allen for the Ballymore. Envoy Allen 7-2 and Andy Dufresne 10-1 from 20. But Andy Dufresne is now on favourite for the Albert Bartlett. We put him in at 16 from 33 yesterday, but that was too big, and he's now 12-1 clear favourite with the next possibles on 20-1. So whichever one of those two races he turns up for will be very interesting. Quick word on Buddy Ocean. We put him in the Queen Mother at 20-1 first show. I think he had to after his performance yesterday. But whether he'll go to Cheltenham is debatable. A connection seemed to have avoided Cheltenham over the years. So maybe hold off on that 20-1 if you were impressed by him.
Yeah, a word of warning then. Plenty of star shows from Navan yesterday. We're going to take a break now, but as usual, if any of those prices do interest you for Cheltenham or elsewhere, then make sure to download our Racing Post app. You can bet through it, and it's got all you need to make those all-important decisions.
What's my horse's handicap? The fact that you're backing him? Everyone loves a newbie. That's why Paddy Power Games are giving all new customers 60 free spins on daily jackpot games. New Paddy Power Games customers only. One per customer. T's and C's apply. 18+. BeGambleAware.org.
Welcome back to this Monday Postcast then, and Cheltenham is back again this week. Starting on Friday, it's the November meeting. We have the 3:35's the first race we're going to discuss on the Friday. The Ballymore Novices Hurdler Grade 2, won last year by Cool Lanley. Fergal O'Brien, one of those trainers in red-hot form. And some really interesting horses engaged this time around. The Persian War winner, Time Hill, is one of them. IK Brunel, Laird Event, Eden Dehoe, and plenty of others as well. Binners, do you have any betting?
We do, yeah. Time Hill, as you say, the Persian War winner, 11-4 favourite. Then it's 3-1 Laird Juvent, 5-1 Dancing on My Own, 11-2 IK Brunel for Max McNeil, and Champagne Well on the same price, 8-1 Bar.
Yeah, some good horses have won this race, Dave. I mean, Persian War, he looked pretty good at Chepstow, but the form's been let down a little bit since.
You say some good horses won it, and they have. Coney Fingal Bay. Not really Cheltenham winners, are they? Obviously Coney we know is a Gold Cup winner, and Fingal Bay Pertemps. But I'm talking about, as that novice season progresses.
They tend to sort of progress into good chasers, don't they?
Coney that year when over hurdles, he turned into a monster, didn't he? And he was strongly fancied going into it. But I just wonder, Time Hill is a very popular horse, isn't he? The Persian War got a knock on Saturday. I remember
Fiddler on the Roof.
Fiddler on the Roof got turned over again. Maybe some mitigating circumstances for that. The only thing I would say, if you like him for this race, is the extra 2 furlongs. If you look back at Chepstow, he did look in a touch of trouble. Richard Johnson got off and said he was a little bit green.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what the weather does this week. You have to think it's going to be better ground there. Maybe that will suit him as well. But as a favourite, personally, I'd be looking to take him on.
Okay, who with? Any ideas at this stage?
Well, Champagne Wells in there. You mentioned Fergal O'Brien. He'll do for a lot of people. But he got such a tactically, astute ride from Paddy Brennan. And I would be very surprised, granted normal improvement, if Laird Juvent of Colin Tizards, who was third to him that day, I was on him.
He was the one to take out of that
I
race.
thought 2 out, I was going to clean up. And he just was green. He had a good look at the stands, looked around him. Puppy Power was not at all hard on him.
Yeah.
And I would be very keen on him if he turned up. In fact, I'm very keen on him.
Obviously, I'll bet you on that one.
Okay.
No, I do. I like to stress it's not all about Colin Tizard trained horses for me, as much as people crap.
He's got a great stock. It's a
exactly.
Yeah.
And there is reason to support Laird Event, but I'll keep my powder dry a little with this one till we see the final entries. The 150 is the next race we're going to look at, the Bet Victor Handicapped race over 2 miles, and the second in the Grand Annual, Bundoran, could reappear here. Binners, does he head your market?
He doesn't, but he's well up there, Maddie. We actually had it with What's Wrong With You at 4-1. Then Bundoran, the horse you just mentioned, 9-2, 5-1 Magic Saint, 6-1 Ecu de la Noverie and Brayland Das, and it's 8-1 the rest.
And Dave mentioned earlier about these 2 mile handicap spinners, about they're all taking their turns to win. Who interests you most in this?
Well, I'm quite keen on Magic Saint for Paul Nicholls, Maddie. As you know, his horses are in fine fettle at the moment. This one went off favourite for the Grand Annual in March. Disappointed, unfortunately. But he's had a couple of runs since. He was second last time at Chepstow in April. And if they sent him off favourite for the Grand Annual, I'm sure he'll go well in this race.
Okay, and what about you, Dave?
The 1-2 from the Grand Annual, of course, if Croco Bay turns up as well.
Is he?
He is. He's a 12-year-old now as well.
What a lovely horse. That I've got to admit, that was one of the most heartwarming results of the Cheltenham Festival for me.
Fair enough, yeah, absolutely. And Ben Case having his day in the sun.
Woods as well.
He has had a winner, Ben Case, recently. I covered one of his on Warwick.
Bryony Frost rode it, didn't
Friday.
Someone else?
Oh, good question.
Same colours, I think. Might have been a different trainer, actually.
Yeah, but a lot of his has just been looking like a tad rusty. I think a few of them missed a week or something like that. But anyway, he could still be well handicapped on 143. He's got a top race best rating of 160, 161, something like that. Bundoran winning this race last year was one of my favourite moments of the entire National Hunt season. I was there at the final fence, and Paddy Brennan was so confident having a look around him, and he absolutely flew it. He's now got £12 more on his back, but if the ground comes up nearly good, he's a must bet.
Okay, that's very interesting. Plenty of confidence there. We spoke about the Grade 2, the Ballymore Novices Hurdle, being a good producer of top horses. Then what about the 225, the Steel Plate and Sections Novices Chase? Historically, a very, very good race. And we could see Birchdale in here, brewing up a storm too. Jarvis Plate, who we spoke about earlier, and also Not That Puissé. Be interesting to get a handle on that Al Dancer form if he runs as well. Binners, do you have a market?
Yeah, Birchdale heads it, Maddie, at 7-4 for Nicky Henderson. 3-1 Brewing Up a Storm, 4-1 Jarvis Plate, 5-1 Angels Breath and 8-1 Bar.
As I mentioned in the first section, I'd be very interested in Jarvis Plate here because it was a bit of a funny race at Chepstow, but I get the feeling he's a real stayer and this galloping track could see him to better effect. Dave, who do you think's the one?
Well, the form has been given obvious boost, isn't it?
Exactly,
with
yeah.
Reserve Tank. I thought Reserve Tank showed the definite benefit of that experience, though, at Wincanton at the weekend. Was it this meeting last year that he absolutely hosed up at Jarvis Plate, or was it the October meeting?
I think it might have been one in December.
Actually,
That's the
it
one.
was New Year's Day.
Day.
There you go. Okay,
Yeah.
neither of them then. Okay, so nearly there.
Paul Lanley, you were getting him mixed up with him probably.
Of course I was. Conceding a penalty in this race, the last two winners have done it. Historically, it's not that easy, actually, but the last two winners have done it. Finian's Oscar and Count Meribel, who got a bit lucky, if you remember last year. It was a really messy race and White Moon came down. Has he ever really recovered from that? There are a couple of fascinating horses in here. We could be set for an absolute belter.
Hope so.
You have to imagine that Henderson won't run both Birchdale and Angel's Breath. Angel's Breath has got a lot to prove, hasn't he? Having been one of the talking horses of the century last season, when it just all went badly wrong for him in the Supreme, and the ground had probably not quite right. He was a bit keen at Aintree, I seem to remember, behind Reserve Tank. They're looking at stepping him up, as we now see in 2 mile 4. They still think he could be the real deal over fences. Give him a chance. Should slow him down a bit. However, for him and Birchdale, first time out, I think this is going to be a really tough task. Bruin Up and Storm impressed me at Carlisle when he won.
Good race, that.
It was. Historically, it often is. He looked beaten at the bottom of the hill. Of course, that stiff finish. He's now up to 2 mile 4. We know he likes Cheltenham from last year. He's interesting around about the 4-1 mark. Probably would be my main play, but not that Fisi, or however we say him, who was second to Al Dancer. If he can iron out those mistakes, he will eat up this return to further, and getting weight could be a bet as well. So they'd be my 2 against field.
Okay, very interesting. Must do a plug. You mentioned that Angel's Breath. My friend actually looks after the horse, so fingers crossed for a good season for
And the
Angel's Breath.
vibes?
I haven't actually spoke to her recently, but I presume they're very good. So best of luck, Annie, if you're listening. Anyway, we'll move on to the 3 o'clock, the Glenfarclas Cross Country Handicap Chase, and a really interesting horse in here in Yanworth. You laugh, and it's funny that you laugh because he has been one of those horses for many people. Not sure many would have expected him to be lining up in this a couple of years ago. We've got the usual suspects in as well, Urgent de Gregan from France, Fact to the Matter, and many more. Binnis, where does Yanworth feature in your market?
Well, we can't separate him from Urgent de Gregan, Maddie. We make them both 9-2 joint favourites, and it's 11-2 Fact to the Matter, 6-1 Ballyboca Bridge, 8-1 Blue Templar, and it's 10-1 the rest.
And what do you think, Binnis? Would you be for or against Yanworth in a race like this?
Well, I've always been a big fan of Yanworth, but the one that I would take him on with is Blue Templar. He won a couple of the Banks races at Punchestown, ran the Bulger at Punchestown last season, and since then he's been knocking on the door in a couple of handicaps, and I think he might go well, and will return for another one of these races at the December meeting and possibly the festival as well.
Yeah, he's certainly interesting. Blue Templar for Binners then. Yanworth, I mean, back in the day, he was a very, very talented horse. You remember he ran against York Hill in that Ballymore.
Beat him, yeah.
Yeah, bolted up, I think it was on Trials Day a couple of years ago.
Then went chasing, it just didn't work out, did it? Yeah, and he was expected to, whenever you see these end of Bulger horses and they run over hurdles in like September, you know kind of what they're plotting towards. But he pulled up, and if he'd have shown even a modicum more, he would be clear favourite in this race. It's a handicap, you have to remember this as well, this one. So the market will tell everything. Josie's Orders won it for the team last year. Blue Templar, I think, I'm with Binners. He looks like he's going to be their number 1. And he's getting lots of weight all round, so he could just be a big gamble on the day.
Yeah, I can't have Yanworth. Such a different sort of ask for a horse, isn't it, this?
Who'd have thought he'd have ever ended up here?
I know, it's crazy. We'll move on to the feature on Saturday now at 2:25. It is, of course, the Bet Victor Gold Cup, a Grade 3 over 2 mile 4 handicap, and a really competitive race as per usual. I mean, this is less like a handicap and more like a sort of Grade 2 territory, isn't it? Binners, just run us through your market. I believe Slate House, who we saw bolt up at Cheltenham recently, is the favourite.
He's not quite favourite, Maddie.
I'm getting them all wrong today, aren't I? Must be looking at other markets.
No, you're on the premises, Maddie. You know, all the ones you've mentioned have been close up there. It is, in fact, Cyril Dulac at 5-1 favourite. Then we go 6-1 Spirit of the Games and Slate House. 10-1 Count Marable, Us and Them, and it's 12-1 Bar.
Tough race, this, I thought.
Pesky bookmakers, knowing that the second season chasers are probably going to be the ones to be with here, I think. It depends what the weights do, of course.
Yep.
Will Janica run? Unlikely, isn't it? And ASO, I think Venetia said it might come a bit quick for him after that fair return. So then you're looking at Black Corton, so we'll have a £5 jump. So be mindful of that if you're having a bet pre-Thursday when the final decks come out. St Calvados, it's not for me. What will the ground be like if it is sloppy again? I suppose there's half a chance of that. And in Slate House, I can see that. We spoke about him after he won that time.
We did.
But an extra £12 on his back.
For a horse who hasn't always been straightforward as much as I like him.
Yes. Spirit of the Games will be slightly better off with Cyril Dulac at the weights on their festival handicap form when Janica was splitting that. Spirit of the Games just doesn't tend to win. He's one of these horses that I've fallen for, and I'm sure lots of people have been the same. Comes there because he tends to get very far behind. He must be quite a keen horse at home, I think, for them to drop him out so much. Cyril Dulac just looks absolutely nailed on, rock solid.
Yeah.
He's got the form there. The handicapper can't do all that much with him. You know, the form's been boosted left, right and centre. He goes well fresh. He goes on any ground. I remember when he won.
He's the solid one, isn't he?
At the festival, yes, absolutely. Us and Them is interesting, having looked like very much a prep for this. Second in an Arkle. If the weights don't go up that much, he could be interesting. He's due to carry 10-10 as it is. He'll have a bit more. I'd be looking definitely at the second season novice. Count Maribel's quite interesting. That wasn't a bad run behind Lost in Translation.
Loves Carlisle, doesn't he?
Loves Carlisle, but he did win at this meeting last year, as I said, in that novice chase. And yes, he got a little bit lucky that day. Mark Grant's first ever winner at Cheltenham, that was. I remember as he walked down, he was in floods of tears. It was great scenes. He's tough. He'll be up there. And, if the ground does turn, historically in this race, you want to be on the pace around Cheltenham in these big handicaps. It's
Baron
so
Alco
hard.
last year.
Great shout, absolutely. So, look, I think 5-1 is skinny enough, but if the race cuts up, we could be looking at easily a 7-2 shot on Cyril Dulac.
Two I want to get your opinions on, who I thought were quite interesting, not necessarily betting propositions at this stage because we need to know more, but I thought Bellamy to Picton for Venetia Williams could be one. Although we've not seen him in quite a while, maybe he's not been the most straightforward to train. And Guitar Pete, who won at Wetherby quite impressively, I thought. Third in the race last year, I think.
Start with the first one. Bellamy to Picton, but waiting patiently for him, isn't it? That he has in his bag, which makes him look like a handicap winner waiting to happen. What went wrong at February in Sandown?
He went so well. I was watching
the whole world thought he was going to win, didn't they?
And then just nothing.
Right. So will she, being Venetia Williams, his trainer, is in sizzling form for this time of year.
Exactly.
It's not always the way, is it? The rain has been around, and I know that we associate, those horses, and we sort of knock her a bit for that. But whenever the rain is around, these horses just keep going. They love it. The stamina sapping conditions.
And he's a front runner as well.
He could be one of those that could run a huge race. He could also pull up. So it's a Marmite 51 for me.
Okay, and Guitar Pete, the grey, lovable horse.
Been here, done it, placed in some of the big races before. Has he won a Caspian Caviar?
Didn't he win it when that awful incident to Starchitect happened?
Yes, he did, absolutely. It's just an age thing, isn't it? Well, the younger horses have legs on him. But I respect your view. So, and again, if they don't fire for whatever reason and the handicapper has got them, then, one of the old boys will come to
Yeah, I'm with you, though. I think Cyril Dulac is the obvious one, isn't he? Binners, anything to add on the Bet Victor Gold Cup before we go for a break?
Well, Dave kind of dismissed St Calvados, but I'm going to stick with him for Harry Whittington. He had a wind-up over the summer, and then he came back and won at Cheltenham last month, justifying favouritism. Harry would have been slightly disappointed with his form last season after he won on his seasonal debut at Naas, but saying that, he did come up against Altior a couple of times, so the runs weren't that disappointing, and I think he'll go well despite what Dave thinks.
Okay, and before we do go for that break, I'm going to throw Dave a curveball. You were on the analysis at Sandown yesterday. Any horses going forward you think you could sort of...
Yes, just give me a second. Canelo, is it?
Yes.
Yes, is Canelo. That right? Canelo. been purchased by JP McManus, despite having, he was $1 million in mine doors, so they always go to the sales. He was back off a whopping layoff and in a very good novice handicap, which will work out extremely well. He is one to take.
Okay, thanks very much. I don't think that was very fair, but yeah, you certainly did. Join us after the break when we have a look at the midweek action.
I'm Jose Mourinho. I know a thing or two about being special. Nearly dying in a laundry basket. Special. Winning the daily jackpot on Paddy Power games? Not special.
Understood, Jose. Yes, someone wins an average £40,000 jackpot every single day. So if you win, don't think you're special. Daily Jackpots by Paddy Power Games. Jackpots must be awarded by 11 p.m. and vary from day to day. Jackpot is shared with other operators. Available on selected games. T's and C's at paddypower.com. 18 plus BeGambleAware.org.
Welcome back to this final instalment of the Monday Postcast, and as promised, we're going to have a look through the midweek meetings. I won't run you through all of them as time is of the essence, but some really classy action at Bangor-on-Dee and indeed Clonmel, two of the meetings that have been starred on my running order. Where are you going for your next best, Dave?
Shattered Love if she turns up at Clonmel in the Clonmel Oil Day, big day for Clonmel, in the following mayor's listed race. She has been a little bit disappointing.
I really liked her when she won that JLT.
But this is her easiest task for some. She was a bit disappointing last year, wasn't she? I thought she was going to kick on and beat the big boys.
I think I might have backed her for the Gold Cup each way, just a crazy little bet.
Yeah, I've got to think I'm backed her for something. I can't remember what it was, but it was an expensive project last season. And she was a beaten favourite on her return. Was it at Wexford, I think? But that was in a good race. She will be favourite, but her form figures will mean that the likes of Binners will dangle the carrot.
Okay. Binners, who's your next best?
Well, I'm heading down to Leafy Lingfield on Tuesday, Maddie. The 120, the 2.5 mile novice hurdle. A horse called Cat Tiger. I think this one will be very difficult to beat. It will be being ridden by enthusiastic amateur David Maxwell, who just loves the game. A recent Exeter winner. And he's also entered in that Ballymore Novices hurdle at Cheltenham on Fridays, and we've only got him in that at 8-1. So I think he should win at Lingfield, and he also has an entry in that catchily named Betfair Stayers Handicapped hurdle at Haydock later in the month. So I expect him to win at Lingfield.
Yeah, definitely a big David Maxwell fan. I think the sort of energy he brings to the game's great.
Amateur,
Yeah, exactly. Why not? So fingers crossed he can have a winner with Cat Tiger. Let's get the lads' naps now.
This will not be beaten.
Paul Binfield, I'll let you go first.
Well, let's stick on to it's a big day Tuesday for me, Maddie. The 2 mile 5 furlong handicap chase at Hereford at 3 o'clock. I'm going for Town Parks, which is a Kerry Lee horse. He wasn't beaten far on his seasonal debut at Stratford. He's a course and distance winner around Hereford, and he's got good stats at a track that the Lees love. He's run there 4 times. He's won. He's been second twice, and I think he will win.
Okay, Town Parks for Binners. He's been excellent form on these podcasts recently. Dave, can you match him with the winner?
Yes, 3:35, L'air du Vent. I think that will reverse the form of Champagne well.
On Friday?
On Friday, yeah, in the 3:35 of the final race at Cheltenham.
Indeed, okay. Thanks very much for joining us. That's all we've got time for today. Thanks to Binners and Dave for their thoughts. And the team will be back as per usual on Friday with the tipping postcast. We'll see you soon.
Check out Paddy's Rewards Club. Simply place 5 bets of £10 or more across any sport in a week, and you'll get a free £10 bet then next week. T&Cs apply. 18 plus BeGambleAware.org.